Hi folks, in this video, let's explore the biggest roadblock in innovation, especially when it comes to leveraging your data. It's called data silos. By the end of the video, I'm going to talk about a few of the challenges which companies face in concern or in relation to their data silos and why this is such a big roadblock. By the time we get to the next video, we will also talk about some of the solutions. What are the leading options in the market today? This is not something which I'm talking for the first time. I've been talking about it for several years, and there are so many solutions in the companies in the market which are actually focusing on breaking the data silos. But before we go there, let's talk about what are data silos and what are those few problems we face. They are basically the siloed components of data, which basically means every department in the organization is keeping their data in their own territory or their own boundaries. So imagine a marketing team keeping and retaining their own data in their own systems. They basically have their own budgets, so they have their tools, and through their tools, you run their campaigns, they collect the data, they reach out to customers, they do web campaigns, email campaigns, physical, or it could be ad campaigns they are doing, and they know who they are targeting, their customers. So all the data, what they create and collect, is stored in their systems. Similarly, finance has their own system, HR has their own system, Salesforce has its own system. The IT services and the information technology group will have their own systems as well. Now, the data silos becomes a big thing when over the years all of these departments keep their data separately and they continue to run as if they are separate organizations. Now, let's go over and talk about some of the problems where this data silo becomes a roadblock to innovation. The number one issue is when, in the age of AI, when you want to make a decision, you're not just trying to make a decision about a customer in a unidimensional way. You're not thinking, hey, how many emails this customer has been opening from us. You also want to see what kind of business this customer has given you. So, what is the lifetime customer value? What products this customer has liked, what products this customer has complaints about, what are their preferences when it comes to buying things from us, what kind of price category these guys buy from, how often they buy from. Do they buy when we send them an email campaign? Do they buy when we send them coupons? Are they price sensitive customer or they're a luxury buyer? So all this type of decision making, which has business implications, you don't do it in a unilateral or a unidimensional fashion. You don't just look at sales data to make that determination. You don't look at just marketing data to make that determination. To make that determination, you need data to be collected for the customer 360 degree. So that kind of decision making is impossible if you're only dealing or looking at data from one department. That is where the big trouble starts with the data silos. The second problem which we come across because of these data silos is slower decision making. By slower decision making is that imagine a retail company. We're in December, so we're heading into holidays and we've already had Thanksgiving. Companies have to figure out what kind of inventory they need to have in which store, what kind of sales projections, what kind of sales forecast. So eventually all the decision making happens where sales, finance, marketing, all these data points are joined by the hip. Now, if you don't get real time visibility into most of these data points, making decisions like how many products of a certain type needs to be available in which location, which warehouses should be stocked at what time. So it gets extremely comprehensive and sensitive when it comes to making decisions on all these aspects. From an AI perspective, it's a missed opportunity. Let's try to look at it from an example. Let's say an hospital is trying to invest in an AI application to be able to predict what kind of readmissions are to be forecasted for patients who've come here in the past. Now, for that, you want to have access to what kind of treatment a particular patient went through, what kind of medication they took, which is coming from the pharmacy data, what kind of routine they were following when they were here, what does their health record like, so their vitals and all of that. Now, imagine all these three data points or these major data points sitting in different systems, and these systems either not talking to each other or you don't have access to all of this data in one place. That's where it's a big missed opportunity. Let's go to the next item, which I've consistently seen as a problem of data silos. That is inconsistent reporting. So when you have different data sets and people are looking at different systems, what happens is one department may have a completely different view of the business versus the other. I've seen this firsthand myself, where the sales team feels and sees that they have booked X revenue versus the finance team, their way of booking revenue is very different and they see differently. And when the CFO is basically comparing reports from the two different departments, there is a delta of 10 to 15%. Now at an enterprise level, two departments having a difference of 15% is a massive thing. So that's one of the major drawbacks when you're working or a company is working on data silos. Lastly, one of the other common things which we have seen with data silos is a poor customer experience. All the issues we have talked about from a data silo perspective have been internal so far. But what happens when a customer gets involved? Imagine I see my loyalty points on the website and I want to redeem those points, and I call the customer care to use my points for another travel which I want to book. Now they are looking at a different system, they don't have visibility of these points, or they just don't know how these loyalty points will actually accrue or give me credits towards the new system. Similarly, imagine I've cancelled one of my travels before and that credit has been sitting in my account. I want to apply this credit for a new travel. So these type of situations we often see can happen in a daily life when a customer gets involved. And as a customer, you really don't care if the systems are stopping you from fulfilling my request. It gets very frustrating for the customer to notice that a company or a brand is unable to fulfill their promise or stand by their products. Now let me go through 4 or 5 additional points which are not commonly discussed, and I'm going to go through them quickly. The moment you're working in data silos, you're also wasting some money in terms of the data storage, right? You're creating redundancy of data and you're spending more money on the wastage, on the storage of all of this data. The second challenge I've seen generally, again, not talked about a lot, is shadow IT situation. Since people are using different softwares in different departments, this could also lead to security risks and people creating their own processes and workflows to load data, to bypass data, or to do some data checks and balances in place. So shadow IT is a problem which is again not discussed often, but it is a big problem in itself. Again, if you spend some time doing such projects, you'll realize that a huge amount of technical debt continues to accrue in companies when they're building their own data silos, right? So every system which each department has taken on, eventually they realize, or they get to it, that they need to make customizations to those systems to meet their demand. Now that customization means that all of these systems kind of start going away from what their out of the box capabilities are, and they've had some layers of customization added. Now the moment you think of down the road of consolidating these into a single data lake or a data lake house type of a thing, you will realize that this technical debt which has risen, the band-aids which have been added, all of that is actually making it harder to integrate these systems. And lastly, one of the other thing, again from experience I've seen, is us versus them culture. A particular department is too close to the data what they manage, so they feel like they are the custodians of this data, and automatically us versus them mentality comes in, right? Whereas instead of looking at all of this data as enterprise data and something which the company has and owns, and all of us are responsible for making sure everybody gets a similar view of the data. So as you saw through this video, we went over about 5 core issues with data silos. We also looked at about 4 or 5 different items which are not very commonly discussed but are the drawbacks when it comes to data silos, and why, and actually it makes it a lot more clearer hopefully for you that why it's important for companies to break data silos and integrate data. Ultimately, if your data still lives in silos, that's a big red flag that you're really not ready for the AI success. You could deploy AI at a department level, you could do it based on the tools. All of these tools individually have started to bring AI into their own workflows. So you could still apply AI at a department level, but when it comes to enterprise level integration, data silos is one of the biggest roadblocks you're going to come across. With that, let's end this video, but in the next video, I'm going to talk about some of the actionable strategies on how do you overcome the data roadblocks. Thank you. Bye.